All right, the Wolf alluded to Keenan Allen, hamstring injury. He of the glass body, which is constantly being smashed up and broken and dinged up. He's out for week 2 against the Chiefs. For a while, the coach was a little non-committal, saying if he was going to play or not. He's not going to play. Obviously, the beneficiaries to this or at least the most likely beneficiaries to this are going to be Mike Williams, Josh Palmer, DeAndre Carter creeping a little bit last week. And it seems like for some reason, seems like the Chargers have like 6 tight ends that randomly catch passes every now and then. What do you think is going to happen? What do you think is the most likely thing that's going to be affected by Keenan Allen, their undisputed alpha guy, being out?
I'm hoping it's Mike Williams. We're both invested very heavily in him, and it makes logical sense. At the times that Keenan was limited last year, Mike Williams tended to step up and be that absolute alpha hawk. If it does not happen this week in a potential shootout, not potential, this is going to be a shootout, over under 54, smash the over. I always have to take the points. I know it didn't work for you last week. We even kind of said the smart bet's the under here tonight, but who wants to root against points? You don't ever want to do that in the first week of fantasy action. But man, I don't think this game does anything but shoot out. We could get a great one here. So ultimately, if this doesn't happen for Mike Williams, it is panic button time. Like, this is the type of matchup without Keenan Allen. He should prove I am a true alpha. Justin Herbert banged the table. We have to get this guy back. He's a heartbeat of our offense type of guy. And so this is the time. Show it, Mike. Big divisional matchup. Lots of points are going to be needed. Are you able to be a true number 1 receiver? We did not see it in week 1. We need it. I need it.
Did you get like one target, something like that?
It was pathetic. I think he ended the day with like 3 catches for 10 yards, something like that. Maybe not even.
I thought it was like a catch for 12 or something.
It might be,
like
yeah.
that.
Maybe I'm being generous with that stat line. Good Lord. It was terrible.
I don't know. It was bad.
So the immediate beneficiary is him. If you have him, you have to start him. Despite last week's horrendous game, he's right on the fringe of my top 12 wide receivers because of what I expect to happen. But ultimately, if you lost Keenan Allen and you need a plug-in, I really think it's going to be Josh Palmer. Now, I know he didn't show up last week. 3 catches, 5 yards, not great. But if you look at the underlying usage, he was already on the field on almost every play in 3 receiver sets, and then immediately became the next man up in 2 wide receiver sets. Played all 51 snaps after Keenan Allen departed, ran 26 routes, which was the most on the team. And again, you don't get points for routes run. I understand that. But just to see the guy have the main role, I care more about that than the fact that DeAndre Carter caught a long touchdown. Now, he also could potentially be the fill-in guy, but I think going into the week with Palmer, like knowing that Keenan Allen was going to be out, they can kind of scheme around this guy. And when that's happened in the past, when Allen missed games last year, or Mike Williams, and Palmer was like a starter heading into the week, 5 catches, 66 yards, touchdown, 17 points, wide receiver 16. 15 points, wide receiver 22, 14 points, wide receiver 32. So very steady, stable numbers, a quality wide receiver 3 plug-in here for Josh Palmer. Again, whenever he was used, whenever they schemed him into this offense, he did thrive, and he was getting so much hype in training camp as running away with the job, one of Herbert's favorite targets, staying late every day to work with his QB type of guy. I know we didn't see it in week 1, similar to Mike Williams, though. I'm just going to kind of toss that out. Hope it was a mirage. Hope for better days for both of these guys. Those are the top 2 up. But I will say DeAndre Carter was the one that came right into 3 wide receiver sets, the only guy to run a snap. No Jalen Guyton sighting. So it does seem like he is the clear-cut next man up. He probably, given how much 11 personnel they use, will be right in there. So I like him at like 4,600 on DraftKings showdown slates. I like Palmer more at 5K, but he'll certainly be more popular. So I don't mind getting to Carter. Has the best speed on this team, as we saw him separate, putting up 64 yards on his 3 catches and a touchdown, was the most productive guy. So I guess if you missed out on Palmer and you're really desperate, and that, again, week 2 with all the teams playing, you probably shouldn't be that desperate. But Carter isn't the worst type of dart throw, and certainly on DraftKings showdown tomorrow night, very viable.
Well, as if Pat Mahomes needed any help, Chargers cornerback J.C. Jackson is questionable for week 2 against Kansas City. All the Mahomes doubters that seem to come out because he played like a really bad second half or fourth quarter or whatever against Cincinnati in the playoffs last year, well, he shoved it up their ass pretty good in week 1, huh? And he looked incredible. The other side of that is I thought the Cardinals looked absolutely abysmal. We'll talk more about that later. But what do you think about this cornerback news?
Yeah, it seems actually like he's trending towards playing. He is their best corner. So if he plays, It's going to obviously help the defense, but I don't know that there's any stopping Pat Mahomes. Granted, Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes, whenever they've had multiple weeks to prepare, whether it's out of a bye, whether it's week 1 of the season, they always smash. Like that is just you can set your clock to it. You know Pat Mahomes going to smash when him and Andy Reid have lots of time to prepare. On a shortened week, I wonder if that hurts them at all. I really don't think so. I think it's going to be points on points on points. As we note down here, too, he did practice in full on Tuesday. There's a little wrist thing at the end of the game, but he's good to go. He's fully ready to be fired up. He's my QB2 for the week, only behind Josh Allen. Very clear. I think I was a little too low on him. I was a little worried how these wide receivers would shake out. It clearly wasn't an issue. It's kind of funny how both Tyreek and him both performed quite well without each other. They didn't really need one or the other to survive. So it was good to see for Pat Mahomes moving forward. Probably, I think he might be QB2 on my rest of season big board. It's either him or Herbert, who's on the other side of the ball. So that's why I just can't wait for this game. But yeah, obviously J.C. Jackson being out would really help the matchup. Even if he's in, though, I'm not overly concerned. It's just a matter of, does he shadow somebody? Does he maybe take Juju out of the game, the leading target at 8 targets in the first half?
It doesn't matter.
I don't think it will matter, though, because somebody will perform for Pat Mahomes either way.
Yeah, also, it took all of 1 week for Pat Mahomes to overtake Josh Allen in the MVP odds, which I mean, he's now the favorite after that. It's not. Really? By the way, it's not like Allen played bad. He was great.
He was wicked impressive. Like the only interceptions were the fault of his receivers. I mean, I thought Josh Allen was honestly more impressive. I don't know. Actually,
I'm just telling you, the odds have changed. Allen was the favorite, and now it's Mahomes.
Yeah.
Anyway, tight end Donald Parham has officially been ruled out due to a hamstring issue for the Chargers for week 2.
So Gerald Everett, he was already a viable streamer, had 50 yards, touchdown last week with him out. As you mentioned, there was like multiple random who the fuck is this guy type of moments, including their first touchdown. It was some dude that's name started with a Z. I can't even remember what the hell it was, but his name started with a Z. That's all you have to know. It's like Zarfan or something. Who knows? Whoever. He caught the first touchdown from Justin Herbert. It was mind-numbing. So it's not like it's all 100% the Everett show. He did run a route on 65% of the dropbacks. So that's a little underlying, but he's a good stash. He's a good stream this week with Keenan Allen out. Should see some good volume there.
And finally, Harrison Butker, who really appeared to mess up I guess it was his ankle. I don't know. Planning on a kickoff in the game. He came out. And then they brought in this safety, Justin Reed, I think was his name. And then that dude kicked off from the tee and put it through the goalposts from 75 yards away, which was just nuts. And anyway, then Butker came back and kicked a 54-yard field goal. I was like, he's done for the year. And then he kicked like a massive field goal. He did not practice on Tuesday, so I don't know what's going on with that.
And I think just before we went live, Truth, he might be ruled out at this point.
Okay.
And so if you lost Harrison Butker, there's only one name. Do you know who it is?
No, who?
Come on, it's Koo, baby. You know we're a Koo show. Younghoe Koo, baby. 100%. Right. We are the biggest Younghoe Koo supporters. He had 19 points, booted 2 50-yarders in your first half of last week. It looks like the Falcons are the perfect recipe for Koo to go completely bananas again. They're good enough to get it right into his 50-yard range, but not good enough to score. You know how high I am on Koo. He might be my favorite player in the NFL. I am so pumped. I dropped my kicker. I had Rodrigo, who got cut by his own team. Never mind my fantasy team, that bag of fucking dirt. But
you like Koo more than Joey Sly?
Big leg Sly. I do love him too.
Come on, man.
Dude, you know what's wild? I got to toss this out there.
Go.
So the accuracy rankings came out for week 1. Not bad. I was 24th out of 250 or something. So that's pretty good. Top 10%. I'll take it. I do want to obviously creep into the top 10.
Sure.
I got just blasted because I was a little too low on Mahomes. Obviously, that's going to hurt. But I ranked number 2 out of all 200 on kicker rankings. So if you need kicker advice,
that's our wheelhouse.
The crucial position of all of fantasy. Number 2 in the expert industry on kickers, baby. Let's go.
Good for you. Good for you.
Yeah, not bad, right?
No, that's pretty good. I mean, so that's top 10%. Yeah. All right. We're going to get into the week's news.
Can I just ask you before we get in there, Truth?
Yeah,
what's your take on the game? Who wins? It's Chiefs with 4.5 points. They're minus 4.5 here. Do you, who wins? Do you take the points? How would you bet this? I know neither one of us are big bettors, by the way. I don't know.
By the way, I did take the under last week in the game, but I also took the Rams.
Good for you.
So that kind of nullified my
I know. I had the Chiefs. The Bills by I was ready to smash that one. So
I think
over, so
money line. I think money line. I think the Chiefs are almost certainly going to win.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would probably give up the points, take the Chiefs, and would probably go under.
Okay.
I know that's boring, but that's what I think is going to happen.
I don't know that it goes under. I think this is going to be a absolute bananas shootout. I mean, you know me. I always think that.
I know you always think the over is going to crush.
It's the two best quarterbacks, two of the top 3 quarterbacks in the league, going back and forth. Like, there is the upside.
Look what happened last week.
Well, yeah, but Stafford, I wouldn't put Stafford in the same category as Herbert and Josh Allen and Mahomes. Like,
they're the Super Bowl champions, and they certainly have been able to score points in the past.
Little bitch elbow for Stafford. I mean, they just sucked. And you know what?
Yeah, they were bad.
I think there's a good argument to be made. And I heard this actually first on, I love Barstool's Pardon My Take. I know a lot of people trash on Barstool, but I love that show, especially their recap show. And they were talking with Edelman about practicing in the preseason and how a lot of these teams rest their starters in the preseason. And Edelman was like, he's a guy who tore his ACL in the preseason. So of all people that should be against it, like playing their starters, you'd think he would be, but he was like, no, you need those live in-game reps to get the feel, to like get the on the sideline type of cadence, all that stuff you cannot replicate in practice. And you saw the Rams came out slow. The Cardinals played none of their starters. They came out slow.
How many times did we see that? Aaron Rodgers didn't play. Derek Carr didn't touch the ball in the preseason. He was fucking awful.
They all looked shitty. So, and Mahomes did. Mahomes played
I'm not sure. Did Joe Burrow play in the preseason?
Not at all.
Okay, well, he was, I mean, he had some turnover. That's interesting.
And I thought it's a really good point. Like, a lot of these teams that rest their starters, I get it. Of course, if you lose somebody meaningful, it's like, what the fuck were we doing? But it really impacted week 1.
Meanwhile, Geno Smith getting all the preseason reps he can get, and the guy comes out and torches the.
Look at the Broncos. The Broncos rested their starters.
Can we talk about how stupid the Broncos coach is at some point?
Maybe the dumbest. You pay Russ Wilson. I mean, it's nothing you guys haven't heard at this point if you listen to football shows. But just to reiterate, how fucking dumb can you be to give that much money, the most ever, to a quarterback, and then you take the ball out of his hands to attempt a ridiculous 64-yarder and just pray for it? What an absolute moronic call! Like,
well, also the guys like the coach. I'm gonna get the direct numbers and the direct quote wrong probably, but he was just like, "Oh yeah, that's his wheelhouse, that's his range or whatever. Expect him to make it." And it's like he's taken like 8 of those in his career around that, and he's missed literally every single one of them because of course. And he's just like, wheelhouse. "Well, I thought this one would probably go in."
Right. Anyway, and not even at Denver where the thin air, like it was just.
It's like running the clock down in basketball, like to your last possession, and then pulling up from like 45 feet out and shooting. And being like, it didn't go in.
It's so true. And as big of a tool as Russell Wilson is, like off the field, he is really good in these like 4-minute, 2-minute situations. Like, let the guy just do his thing. Show some faith in the guy you paid all this money for. I don't get it. I did see a funny quote where like they were pretending that he made the kicker do it because they just didn't want to deal with Russell being the savior and glowing himself up off the field. The coach was like, I wanted to put us all out of that misery. Quoting like Robert Frost or something. I took the road less traveled. It was a funny quote.
I'm sorry. I had to rant at you about that. This is what happens when we're not working up to kickoff. We go on like these 10-minute rant tangents. So do you think KC is going to win or the Chargers? First of all, money line.
But again, another feather in the cap, by the way, for preseason action. None for the Broncos. All of it went to Geno Smith, and the biggest upset that we could have ever imagined. So, like, yeah.
Hey, by the way, Seahawks sitting on top of the NFC West by themselves.
Who? Oh my God, just insanity! I love football. That's just the best. It's just so crazy. I'm gonna definitely take Chargers with the points. If they lose, I think it's gonna be within a field goal. And I honestly think they could come in and have like a season-defining, like, we are here to stay. We are ready to compete for the Super Bowl this year because they got so many of those gut-busting losses. I think they at least get it into the range that it's going to come down to a field goal kick, and hopefully they're on the right side. I like this Chargers team. I think they could even money line this thing, but I'm certainly going to take them with the points, and I'm holding the over. There's no way I'm not taking the over on this matchup. I
really like the Chargers. I want to pull for the Chargers. They got to prove it to me because, I mean, the Raiders gave them all they wanted, and Carr looked like he wasn't even an NFL quarterback, and they won by like 4 points. So anyway.
What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.